Greetings and salutations, everyone. I hope everyone is still doing well, and welcome to, depending on wherever you may live or however you choose to read your clock, this early morning, middle of the night bonus upload. Before we jump into it, a couple quick links. As many of you know, I rely on Patreon, PayPal, channel membership, and the merch to help the channel to continue to grow and go. Links to Patreon, PayPal, and channel membership is in the description below. Merch displayed directly under the video. Also, Dogman Frightening Encounters, Volume 1 through 3, the audiobook versions. They were written and researched by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeff Nadolny. Those audiobooks are available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes, links to which are also in the description as well. And finally, last but definitely not least, if you'd really like to help support the channel to continue to grow and go, simply subscribe. It does not cost a cent. Click the like button, takes half a second. If you don't want to miss out on any of the informative uploads I put out daily, click the bell icon, and folks, please leave a comment. Why? Well, because all of these things really do help the channel to continue to grow and go. They definitely do matter, and they are appreciated. And with that, I have taken far too much of your time. Let's jump into this early morning, middle of the night bonus upload, shall we? All right, so today's upload, I am going to share with you guys a couple of encounters. Also, if you're new to the channel, I don't just go into encounters, I also research. Normally I look at attacks that happen on the public and are blamed on animals that don't really fit the description of the attack and how things are. But there are times that I like to look into a possible origin of the Dogman. A while back, there was a book by a gentleman named Van Drimeny, and he wrote The Neanderthal Predation, which did kind of shine some light. It was a scientific theory. But I've got some interesting stuff I want to throw out there. We'll get into an encounter, and then we'll jump into that and finish the evening with an encounter. How's that sound? Today's first encounter. It was around 11:30 when we cut through Morton Road. We backed out of that dirt road so fast and drove south on Durkin, left onto Royal Road, while the entire time looking over an open field with our spotlight and one rifle in the truck. Once we made a right onto 362 and headed south, we began to feel a little more relaxed. We then took it all the way south to 359, made a left onto Highway 90, and didn't stop until we made it to our friend's house in Caddy. We were coming from Pattison, Texas, where one of my friends lives. We also like to go through that patch on Morton Road during the day because it's like off-roading, and who doesn't like that? We originally thought of heading to Royal High School on Royal Road and decorating the grounds with beer cans, but instead decided to turn left and off-road at night when we drove past Morton Road. It's the reason why we were so chilled about coming across what we thought was a large dog, till it turned around and stood on its hind legs and growled at us. Its growl was deep but low. It rattled the entire truck. One of my friends told me the only thing they remember was the sound it made while breathing, which was that of a horse. My buddy's truck is lifted, and usually when I stand in front of the hood, it's around the high part of my chest, and I'm 5'8". But when this thing stood up, you could see most of its waist area, so it had to be taller than me. I can't give an exact measurement because I just don't know. All I know is that it was not a bear. I've seen black bear before. The spotlight caught it, and it looked like my buddy's German Shepherd, but with amber-colored eyes. Maybe it was a big coy dog or coy wolf or bear with mange, but it was tall and wide. It happened so quickly that I'm having a hard time with my thoughts. Sorry about that. So we put it in reverse and got out of there. We drove all the way to Caddy without stopping. Then we barricaded ourselves in with AR-15 and shotgun and just sat there in the middle of a dark room with our backs towards each other for the rest of the night. We didn't leave the house till midday on Sunday to check the dashboard cam, which had recorded the entire incident of the previous night. Our cell phones recorded nothing but jumble, and my buddy's dog wouldn't come near the truck as it kept whimpering with its tail between its legs. The dashboard camera recorded over all the data on Sunday. We went through it, and it was from when the truck was parked at our friend's house. The cell phone quality was so bad we erased it. I dropped my phone on the floor of the truck and didn't find it until Sunday afternoon. It is not something we were planning for, like most of the videos you see on YouTube. Monday morning came around, and we all called in sick because we refused to get out of the house until the sun was out. This obviously upset our family members, our parents, who thought we were just being irresponsible, and we finally grew the courage to return to Morton Road on Monday afternoon. 3 trucks entered Morton Road off Durkin Road with high-powered rifles, shotguns. We didn't find any tracks either, which was weird because it had rained heavily the past few days, so the ground was soft, and there was standing water on Morton Road. The only thing we found was this preserved stench, like something died mixed with a metallic stench, blood and urine. The dogs we brought with us, 2 German shepherds and a Dobie, all whimpered nervously around the site, like they didn't want to be there. After the incident, I've spent the rest of April just reading about everything I could find on Dogman encounters. My other 3 buddies don't want to talk about it either, and one broke up with his girlfriend of 3 years because he just refused to spend the weekend hiking with her through the trails. They got back together after we were able to get him to open up about it, but I'm the only one that has put any effort into looking into this thing. It's been about a month and I still refuse to be out after sundown. I don't leave my house early in the morning anymore to go to the gym at 5 a.m. In fact, I've changed my life around completely, and that includes no more bed walks at night with the dog. I've installed security bars on my first floor windows, added spotlights to the entire house, and placed better security cams. I also no longer drive through country roads, even during the day. Specifically by myself, I feel exposed. Last week, I refused to go fishing on the Brazos River and turned down heading for the weekend to Lake Conroy. I always wanted to go fishing at the East Bay, but to get there, one would have to go off-roading for about 15 miles. Yeah, after this experience, I no longer feel safe. I just want to go back to being ignorant about these things that go bump in the night. So, about 3 years ago, I shared an encounter in the same area. Literally, same exact area. 2 big differences. One is that there's an 11-year span between the 2. And the second will pop out to you immediately when you are hearing it, which we will discuss after I share this experience with you. Let's get into it. When I was a young child, I had watched The American Werewolf in London by myself, and I've been terrified of werewolves since. My experience happened on the 20th of July, 2012. It was a Friday night. I was 19 at the time. I didn't have many responsibilities other than delivering pizza part-time, so naturally, being a teen, I was out with friends at a house party in Old Caddy, a suburb west of Houston, Texas. My friends and I experimented both with marijuana and alcohol, but we were always responsible enough to make sure one of us stayed sober to be a designated driver. That particular night was my turn to be the sober one. My friend B had gotten well past drunk, and once he started to behave recklessly at the party, it was time to go. He didn't want me to take him home, so instead asked me if I'd drive him to one of his friends' homes that I wasn't too familiar with. This friend, who I only remember as Joey, lived on the far west outskirts of Caddy, close to a town called Brookshire. I took Morton Road to get there, with the driver and passenger windows down so that my buddy could get some fresh air. The street is one turn north of Morton, and while I don't remember the name of that street, I do remember how to get there. My sense of direction is fairly superior. I delivered pizzas all throughout Caddy and have since become a local truck driver in Houston. The road had 3 or 4 houses on the eastern side, and on the west side was a fairly large forested area, maybe 40 or so acres, that dead ends just past the last house. I had noticed the moon was full before I even went out that night. I got to Joey's house, the second house on the right, and parked my car on the left, closest to the trees. I helped my buddy out of the car and walked him to the porch. Joey came out, thanked me for dropping him off, and we said our goodbyes. I decided to smoke a cigarette before I left the road. At the time, I shared my car with my dad, and his number one rule was not to smoke in the car. After lighting my cigarette, it didn't take long to notice how eerily quiet the road was. I assumed I didn't notice before because I was too busy taking my noisy drunk friend inside his house. Maybe 3 drags into my cigarette, I heard heavy footsteps going across the gravel about 100 feet in front of me. I was alarmed at the sound they made, similar to the sound of pulling something metal against concrete. As I stated, my fears have always been of werewolves. Here I am, alone, standing on a dark road under a full moon, and I hear something big walking, too close for comfort, in front of me. I didn't hesitate to throw down my cigarette and jump in the car. I told myself as I was getting in that I was not going to turn my headlights on so I didn't see what was in front of me, simply to reverse my way back to Morton Road and get the hell out of there. Unfortunately for me, the car had those automatic lights that turn on as soon as you start the car, a fact that I was aware of but in my panic seemed to ignore. Immediately in front of me, about 100 feet as I guessed, was a 6.5 to 7 foot creature on its hind legs. It was covered in black fur, with the body of a gym-addicted man, and the head of what I guess could be similar to that of a German shepherd or a black wolf. It had human-like feet covered in dark fur as well, with large claws sticking about 2 inches out. And it held its left hand out the same way a human would reach for something in front of them. I noticed that the fingers ended in large claws as well. While this was enough to cause my jaw to drop, what really got me the most was it seemed to be wearing torn blue jeans that seemed far too tight and unnaturally torn, and what looked to be an open flannel shirt that was ripped at its shoulders. It looked my way when the lights revealed it and glared at me with these narrowing amber-colored eyes baring its large fangs. My windows are still down and I hadn't touched the radio, so I had no trouble hearing this loud growl that it let out. It then turned its head to the forest, dropped on all fours, and ran out of my sight into the trees. All this took place in 20 seconds or so, but it felt like hours. At this point, I literally had tears in my eyes, but I didn't hesitate for 1 second longer to shove the car in reverse and put the gas pedal to the metal. I heard loud growling and grunting as I was leaving. I reversed onto Morton and went about 80 to 90 miles an hour down the streets, heading back to Caddy. I didn't slow down until I was on Interstate 10. While still on Morton Road, I kept my eyes in front of me and sobbed the whole time, I'd never been so scared in my life. I can swear that the look I got from that creature was communicating to me that I had no business seeing it and that it wanted me gone. The look reminded me of criminals on TV being caught in their wrongdoings and wanting to cause harm to those who witnessed it. I got home, ran inside, and called my Scottish Terrier into my room, and I didn't sleep until the sun came up. To this day, I've not had the desire nor the nerve to go back to Morton Road. I was obsessed over the idea that I had seen a /werewolf Dogman. I've researched werewolf sightings and Dogman sightings on Google. I was intrigued by the Beast of Bray Road and everything else that came up. I was disappointed to see nothing I found on the internet was precisely what I had seen. While the beasts others have encountered were similar, none were spotted wearing clothes. I told my parents what I had seen, while my mom could tell that I was being genuine. My dad was more interested in me driving that far from home without letting him know, so I stopped talking about it. Of the 7 people outside of my family I told, only my wife and my friends seemed to believe me. Most laughed and asked stupid questions like, "Did you ask the werewolf if he got the vampires yet?" and similar things to that. I've always wanted to share this, but it wasn't hard to notice that my story sounds far-fetched, especially considering the fact that I couldn't find any other reported sightings near the Houston area, nor much in Texas recently either. I guess I was scared of being ridiculed, or to be honest, scared that if I told my experience that somehow the creature would find out and hunt me down. I'm honestly positive I'll never stop being haunted by the memory of this monster. It's just too vivid and too frightening to put out of my mind. I also never told the friend that I dropped off there that night what I saw. In fact, I didn't see him again for 2 years until I accidentally bumped into him in a gas station south of Caddy. All right, so the obvious other difference beside the 11-year difference is that it was wearing clothes. Now, I've only heard of maybe 2 other experiences, one in Ohio and another in Tennessee from a subscriber. The Ohio one was where a young man, 20s, was down by the train tracks, and the name's slipping me. I know it's an easy name to remember. It's an obscure town name, but he was walking down by the train tracks and saw a dog man dressed in clothes. Tennessee sub had seen one similar wearing pants, but nothing. It's an odd one that you don't hear often, and people may not believe it, but I do. I wasn't there, you know? That's something you're not going to forget if, you see one of these creatures and they're wearing clothes. That makes it all the more terrifying, I'd say. Some folks might not believe this, but we're in a community that believes in bipedal canine creatures, large North American wood apes, kind of sickly looking, half alien, half subterranean creatures called crawlers, feral humans. Yet we can't buy the idea that someone possibly saw one of these things wearing a set of clothes. I don't know why it's so hard to believe, but to me, I wasn't there, so I can't knock it, right? Anyway, let's jump into some of the research I wanted to share with you, and then top this evening off with a terrifying encounter out at Tennessee. Let's jump into the research. So I'm not going to go too in-depth on this. For those of you that remember me talking about Van Drimany's book, you'll immediately, once you hear that last name, you should remember the book, especially about Neanderthal and predation. But anyway, I had been thinking here recently about a couple of things. And the cave, I hate saying caveman, and it wasn't a Neanderthal, but Lucy, the primitive human-like creature, I guess, because Neanderthals really aren't human. They're still kind of like a creature, was found. They could put fur all over her body, right? So I'm like, all right, that's not too far-fetched to, have something like that exist. Quite possibly, these things live in these subterranean kind of tunnels and cave systems throughout the country and world, hiding from the general public and coming out when they feel safe. So, but then I was like, all right, so if that kind of puts Bigfoot and possibly Van Drimany's thing where Neanderthal was very similar, described as a dogman, but then I started to think about baboons, and I started to look at pictures, and there actually was a prehistoric baboon, larger than a human, and its legs were kind of cocked to the back, similar to that of a dogman. I'm going to do an upload on this whole research in the next couple of days and share those pictures with you so you can see just how big they were, just how scientists think they walked. It's not that far-fetched, It was within the last 100 years that we thought that silverback gorillas were cryptids, It's weird. So maybe one day these things will come to the public eye. Do I think in my time? Probably not. But, if it does present itself to the public, even 50, 60 years from now, that's an amazing thing. It just proves that 50, 60 years prior, us weren't as crazy as everyone says we are. So, anyway, let's jump into tonight's final encounter. And yes, I am exhausted, so I apologize for kind of being slow tonight. I was in my last year before retiring from the Army. I was going through a messy divorce. My soon-to-be ex took our kids back to Texas. I planned to move closer to them once retirement was official. I rented a small 2-bedroom in Tennessee in a town called Indian Mound. Indian Mound is out of the way and very isolated. My commute stunk, but it was cheap and peaceful. I had no neighbors. Across the street was a conservation land for miles. On one side, around the back of the property, was a swamp on the other. The closest house was out of shouting distance, and I really enjoyed it initially. Before this, I lived in the suburbs, and all the noise, people, and traffic just drove me insane. One night, I come home at around 1 a.m. from a concert in Nashville. It was early spring and somewhat foggy. The driveway dipped down, and the house was about 1/8 of a mile from the road. As I pulled in, I saw a huge black dog standing in the front yard. It stood with its head up and its tail straight up. It was fixed on me. I slowly pulled the car up, unsure what to do next, when it turned and ran into the swamp. I didn't think much of it and went inside. Over the following months, things started to happen strangely at night. I would always wake up at around 3 or so in the morning thinking I heard voices outside my window. Sometimes it sounded like one person, then a couple were whispering to each other, but I couldn't understand what they were saying. Sometimes I'd hear footsteps and movement and thought maybe it's that deer or that dog. But when I looked out, I saw nothing. This type of crap continued for months. One night, I wake up to a noise and saw it was 2:57. A bright white light shone through the porch glass. I ran to the kitchen and looked through the small window by the sink, and it looked like someone was out in the swamp shining a spotlight. It was one of those high-powered lights used in a search and rescue. It was blinding and lit up the whole area. I opened the back door and ran out onto the porch, yelling I was calling the cops. The lights went out. I heard someone moving away from the house through the swamp. The cops came out and took a report and told me to ensure my doors were locked and call if anything else happened. I was hyper vigilant for the next few days. I checked behind me when I was coming and going and always slept with the shades drawn and doors locked. The footsteps around the house continued, and some nights I thought I could hear a dog panting outside of my window, although I never found any tracks or signs of anything. The next morning, things died down for a while, and I was about 3 months away from the end of my lease. I woke up at around 3 in the morning, scared out of my mind. I was sleeping and heard a woman call my name. I opened my eyes and realized that this was just a dream. When I heard the voice again, clear as day, I shot up out of bed and turned the lights on. I checked the closet under the bed, opened the bedroom door, and listened down the hallway. I couldn't hear anything, and was about to cut the lights and go back to bed when someone started pounding on my front door. I nearly jumped out of my skin. It was like someone was bashing the door with a sledgehammer. I yelled out that I had a gun and to get the F off of my property. I said I called the cops, and I'll blow your head off before you get in here. The pounding stopped. Cops came again and took a report. There was no visible damage to the door or footprints anywhere. It all just stopped after that. I didn't buy a 9mm, but the rest of my time renting was without incident. I did buy a 9mm, excuse me. I'm back in Texas in an apartment complex in the burbs, and I don't mind it. The backwoods of Tennessee is one creepy place. There you have it, folks. I do hope you all enjoyed this early morning, middle of the night bonus as much as I enjoyed sharing it with you. I'd like to thank you all for supporting the channel. It is, after all, your support that helps the channel to continue to grow and go. And honestly, what gives us all a place and a chance to share our experiences and theories judgment-free. Everyone is simply treated with the respect that we deserve. Please, everyone, stay safe, happy, healthy, and ever vigilant, keeping an eye on our children, pets, family, and friends. These creatures are real. They are out there and dangerous. Share this information with those you love and care about, and it may just help save their lives someday. Until next time, never stop asking questions, never stop searching for the truth, and God bless you all.